Hello everyone, and welcome to my video of this month's soap challenge technique, the Kiss Pour. Now I'm uploading two videos of two different takes of this technique. This here was my second one and I'd learned quite a bit from the first one. If you're interested to see how I worked differently in the first one, please check out the other video. Now for this one, I wanted to make sure that my emulsion was really thin, that I didn't go to any kind of medium or thicker trace. I want to keep it really light. I worked in short bursts here. If you can see, I'm not mixing the entire time with the hand blender switched on. I'm having short bursts, stop it and just mix by hand before giving it another little short burst. I then stopped quite quickly and actually just continued by hand just to make sure that my batch was not thickening up too quickly. Once I was happy with the consistency of my mix, I then divided it into the different containers for the individual colors. Once I divided my batch into the different containers for the individual colors, I then added the colors. The first one here is the bright orange, neon orange from Soak Rochford, a really bright orange color, obviously. Then also the neon yellow, same company, equally as vibrant and lovely. I then also had some purple mica, and finally some titanium dioxide to create a white color. And also, not to forget, of course, I had some fragrance. In this case I used the Lavender Essential Oil. So I started by adding the purple mica. I mixed that in well. I did not use the stick blender this time around. I just literally used the hand whisk to make sure that my trace didn't suddenly start thickening up on me here. I did find that the purple may have not been completely strong enough, so I just added a tiny little bit more of it to give it a bit more of a stronger purple color. Here I am really happy now with the consistency of the mix. It feels thin enough to be working with and it's a really nice purple color. That's exactly what I wanted. I then moved on to add the next color. In this case here I went for the neon orange, and same as with the purple, I hand mixed. I did not use the stick blender. I was not going to make the same mistake as with my last take where it did feel really thin, and then suddenly, as it often happens, you use stick blender and you think it's fine, just a really short burst, and suddenly the mix gets really solid. I then moved on to adding the yellow, neon yellow color. It distributed really nicely, it mixed in well, there was no lumps, no color spots in there at all, and it's a really lovely color to be working with, so I definitely recommend this one. I on purpose left out the Lavender Essential Oil until the end. I just want to make sure that I could work with the colors by themselves. The titanium dioxide I also left to the end of all the four colors, just because I'm aware it can accelerate trace slightly. Now in hindsight, I would actually in future consider to maybe take white mica in this case, just because with these small quantities I find it hard to mix in the titanium dioxide smoothly and really getting all those little color lumps out. But overall I think it worked well here. So now I'm quite happy. I'd already, obviously, as you could see, mixed in a little bit of titanium dioxide with oil before I put it in the entire batch. Now here at this stage I'm adding on the Lavender Essential Oil, and I'm really quite happy that my whole mix is still really quite fluid. Trace is fine. It's brilliant to work with, I think, at this point, so I'm thinking I'm going to speed up here a little bit just to avoid any kind of disaster in terms of the mixture setting up too much. Here you can see a lovely white titanium dioxide, the neon yellow, bright and lovely, the neon orange, and finally the purple mica. And now that I had all my four colors, it was finally time to get down to the proper technique. I was very happy with the exact consistency I had here. You can see the purple is running in nicely. I don't think it's too thin, because of course if it were too thin the two colors would just literally blend into one another, which, you know, in this case would just create a nicer lighter purple, but depending on which colors you might just end up with a muddy mess. But you can see here right now it's flowing nicely. I started with purple, then poured in a little bit of the white. Here is another set of purple, and I'm just adding on another white. I do pour straight from the front where the beaker tip is, Pour slowly to make sure that it doesn't mix with the layer underneath, and just keep taking it in turn, always trying to get roughly the same amount in until both colors are mixed in to the max. Now I've seen other people kind of taking it in turns between the two beakers, because obviously this is only one beaker of the two that need to be filled, but I decided it's easier and probably slightly less messy to just complete that one beaker first, and whilst trying to be careful and not rush it, to still kind of get this done relatively swiftly. So you can see I have finished with all of the purple. I'm just adding on the white. I'm also this time not scraping out the pots. What I did do instead, at the end, with all the leftover I had, I put them in a separate mold and created little hand soaps for us here at home. Now I'm quite happy with this. It's a lovely purple white striped design. Now for the second beaker. Again, the consistency seems perfect here. I've just added the first bit of orange. Now mixing in the yellow. When I say mixing, obviously again pouring slowly and carefully to make sure that the two colors don't blend into one another. I'm thinking here it might start getting slightly thicker, but I think I was getting a little bit paranoid based on my last experience. But for anyone trying or wanting to try a new technique, I would definitely recommend this one. I mean, just look at the different color patterns here. It's so satisfying to actually see these develop, and I think it's a really good technique to actually learn about your traces and learning about using the exact right consistency for this particular technique. It has to be obviously thick enough for the colors not to completely blend into one another, but at the same time it has to be absolutely thin enough to be able to be poured and create that kiss pour in a minute. So I'm almost finished here. I'm feeling a lot more relaxed at this point because I can tell my mix is still fine. It is not getting too thick. Obviously at this point I'm not sure what's happening to the white and purple, but it was all fine. Obviously when you're mixing, when you're using too many different kinds, as in titanium dioxide, Micas, different colors, you may use clays, etc., they can all have a different impact on how quickly your batch accelerates or just sets harder. But look at this, it's a really lovely orange yellow and purple white. I'm so happy with this. I'm actually quite keen to just keep it as it is. Now you might wonder what happens here in my container. Basically I cannot use the soap other than for ourselves. I cannot sell it. I cannot even give it away here in the UK. So I'm trying not to make too big batches because to be honest, I'm not quite sure what to do with it all in the end. So I've just boarded off a little bit. I wanted to make sure it was thick enough and at the same time not too big in terms of entire volume. So as you can see here, this is the actual kiss pour technique. You have one beaker in each hand. I'm afraid it's been cut off slightly, but my focus was going to be on what actually ends up in the container. So what you need to be doing here is make sure that the two top ends of your beaker meet and the two containers with the two colors each essentially kiss in the center and round down together. And this then, as you can see, if you've got the right consistency, will create really lovely thin feathers in your container, in your square flat mold here. Now if you've seen a photo or the video of my other take on this technique, you can see that this one worked a lot better. Obviously the other one is nice, but here we were after getting really thin, nice feathery lines, which this consistent here is just perfect for. If you ever want to see any other of my techniques, any of my attempts with different soaps or my designs of my general soaps, feel free to always pop over to my Instagram, sokind_UK, sokind spelled same way as in this YouTube channel here. Feel free to send me any DMs if you've got any questions or any comments to make. Now you can see here it really creates really lovely patterns. I'm really quite happy with this. It actually, after a while, you have to really focus that one of your arms doesn't really slow down, so that you suddenly don't start pouring more from one side than the other. And whilst I wouldn't say they're heavy, you still start to notice it in your arms a little bit after a while. And I say that carrying around a toddler most of the time. Now the odd slight glitch here, but I don't think that had an impact on the overall results in the end. To be honest, it's actually quite satisfying just to watch, and I found that really hard during the actual pour, because I wanted to forever keep looking at the actual mold at the end and see what was happening. But I can advise you to really just keep your eyes on the two beaker tops meeting in the center, making sure you're pouring equally from both sides all the time and not get distracted too much by what's going on in your container at the bottom. You can always admire that at the end. Right, finishing off, I tried to finish it really quickly and not to cause too much of a mess in the center. What I didn't do here, which slightly annoyed me, was I didn't use the stick to kind of play with the center a little bit to create more of a swirl as we were allowed to. I let it set first, I sprayed it with rubbing alcohol, and as you can see on the side, I'd even put some of my leftover bits into my lovely stone mold for our hand soap at the end, and I forgot to twirl that bit in the middle. I did do that, but unfortunately it slightly messed up the surface a little bit. It didn't have an impact on the overall soap because I was planing it anyway, but my OCD look on the soap slightly changed after I had disturbed that nice smooth surface at the top. And now just look at the finished result here. This is still the wet soap. Look at those thin feathery lines. They're really beautiful, worked out really nicely. The only thing I wonder is, should I have maybe added another dark color to the yellow orange pot to give it more of a contrasting color option here. And here it is, straight out of the mold the following day. You can see the feathering. I mean, the color is slightly different on top, but once I've planed this soap, it will look, I'm sure, much nicer. I don't have a divider for this kind of mold because I normally use the loaf molds for making my soaps. So I'm using just a knife here. I've measured it all out to make sure I've got same sized bars, and you can already see that there's a lot of lovely feathering detail hidden underneath that surface. And here we are for the final touches, just planing off that soap using my beveler here, and you can see what's hidden underneath. It's just perfect. I'm so happy with how it worked out, and I'm sure I got the consistency just right here. Thank you very much for watching.